a reminder shared by many of the hunters. While the tale originally came from Nordic folklore, it is a firm reminder to always be careful about killing a beast before you know what it was. You may make a far worse beast. The brothers Wotan and Robin Goodfellow were far from home hunting for something to bring home. Far from home, they encountered a strange beast that they had never seen before. It was like an otter, but larger than a bear, swimming in the river and pausing to wave towards the two brothers. Wotan, the eldest brother, waved back at the beast, but Robin, who only saw how much meat was on the beast's bones and how soft the fur was, threw his knife at the beast, killing it instantly, bleeding its life into the river. Wotan asked, "Why did you kill the beast that offered us no harm?" Robin only shook his head as he removed the beast's pelt and began to smoke the meat over the fire to bring home. The pelt was warm, the meat was fresh. "We are here to hunt, are we not?" Robin said as he prepared the pelts, offering the first pelt to Wotan, who agreed that the fur was warm and soft. The next day, the brothers wandered further into the forest, where they found an isolated cabin, one that had a man and his two sons living in there. The man told the two brothers, "I have 3 sons. My eldest, talented at magic, is a shapeshifter, and he often spends his days in the river as a giant otter, bringing us fish. It is strange that he is still out. He's usually back before dark," the man said as the brothers turned to each other, realizing that the pelt that they wore, the meat that they ate, and the bones that they left behind belonged not to a beast, but to a man in the form of a beast. The brothers discussed quietly among themselves whether to tell the man the truth or not. Robin argued that since they didn't know the beast was a man, that they should simply move on. Maybe it was a different giant otter. Wotan said that they should still be honest, even if it angered their host, because otherwise their crime would follow them along with their guilt. So Wotan confessed to the father, "Good sir, we found a strange beast in the river on our way here. Not knowing what it was, but knowing that the fur and pelt looked tempting, I killed the beast for its skin. I apologize for killing your eldest son unknowingly, but I ask if there is a way for me to make it right. Let me make it right, but I also ask for mercy for my brother," Wotan told the father. The father, in anger, drew his sword as he approached Wotan. "You come into my home, wearing my son's skin, demanding my mercy. You come into my home with your bellies full of his flesh, with an apology on your lips. You still have my son's blood on your hands, on your breath, and in your beards, and you confess? There is a price you can pay to make this right. You can make this right with your life," the father said, lifting his sword, but not before his youngest son whispered in his ear, "Father, I am sad with the death of my brother, but think, if you kill Wotan, then you get nothing. There is another price that we can ask. Maybe a price that can slake a different thirst than blood," the son said as a wicked smile crossed his lips. "Okay, not a blood price then, but a price of gold. Surely even fellow travelers follow this law," he asked as Wotan nodded and he stood. As he stood, the father demanded of the strangers, "Lay my son's skins on the ground. Lay it carefully so the fur stands in the air," he said as both Wotan and Robin listened. The pelts were large enough to act as blankets over very large beds, or comfortable coats for the large fellow travelers. "Now, fill my son's skin with gold. Fill it with enough gold that it is covered with gold," he said as the travelers opened their pouches and poured the gold into the skins. Their treasures from earlier adventures now pouring out of their coin purses to cover the skin. The clink of gold coins filled the cabin as the fellow travelers let go of every single piece of gold that they collected. Now the skin was covered in gold, enough gold to pay for the death of a dozen kings. But as the father saw the pile, he shook his head as he pointed at the skin. On a single pelt, a single hair could still be seen. You need to cover every single piece of hair. Not a single piece of hair, not a speck of skin should be visible beneath the gold. Or I will take both of your lives with the gold, the father demanded. The brothers turned to each other. Their coin purses were empty, so, reluctantly, Robin took off his golden ring, a ring he obtained from besting another fellow traveler who was believed to be invincible. I can offer you this ring to cover the fur, but I warn you, keeper of the cabin, this ring is cursed, and if you let your avarice consume you for this ring, then you will consume others in your avarice. Robin warned the man. The man didn't care. He only saw the gold, the gleam, and the gem in the ring. Cover every hair, or I will take your lives, the man said as Robin dropped the ring onto the skin, covering all of the fur. You can go. Get out of my sight. If I see you again, I will kill you, the man said as he and his remaining sons stared at the gold piled before them. Wotan and Robin departed quietly. Their debt was paid, and as morbid as it was, they did have plenty of meat to bring back, meat that was paid for fairly to the father. That night the father dreamt of his sons killing him for the gold. As much gold as there was, it felt a lot less plentiful when he thought about sharing it with his remaining sons. Yesterday, the pennies he had felt like enough to live on. Today, though, the idea of sharing the gold, even a single piece of it, felt more painful than the loss of his eldest son. So when the father woke up, he placed branches in his hearth, and he sealed the chimney, leaving the cabin and leaving his sons to die in their sleep from the smoke. When he was sure they were dead, he returned to the cabin, but then he feared someone may discover his transgression and demand a blood price from him, just as he did with Wotan and Robin Goodfellow. So that night he skinned, butchered, and ate his children, leaving their empty skins on the floor to help hold all his gold while he wore his ring. As time went on, the father's body changed to match his twisted heart. His teeth grew sharp, his skin scaly and hard. His fingers became claws, his back grew wings, his head grew horns, and he grew with his greed. When travelers came to visit his cabin, he didn't trust them to not touch his treasure. He would murder them with his teeth, his claws, his breath, and his rage, stealing their gold to pile onto the skins of his sons. Even as his hoard of gold outgrew his cabin, even when the father was no longer called a father, but now called a dragon, even when everyone warned to avoid the woods for fear of the dragon, even when the dragon had slain knights, heroes, and villains alike, and placed their gold onto the skins of his sons, it wasn't enough. No matter how high the gold stacked, no matter how wide the pile was, and no matter how much the gold glittered, The dragon could still see more of his sons' skins. He could still see their blood, he could still smell their breath, and he could still feel his greed burn. He always told himself, just a few more pieces, just a little more treasure, just a little more, and it would finally be enough to pay off the sons that he had lost. And no matter how much the dragon changed, he never truly stopped changing as his horde grew with him.